Hi, I'm Brian Lord, Senior Vice President here at Premier Speakers Bureau. I'm happy to welcome with us here today Lenora Billings-Harris, speaker, trainer, and author of the new book, The Diversity Advantage. Lenora, thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure, Brian. Great to see you.
Great. Well, your new book coming out in early 2012 is The Diversity Advantage. It's also a great speech. Tell us more about that.
You bet. Well, this book we're in our third edition of it. I'm so excited for this next edition to come out because we're really expanding it, really incorporating so many things that have happened over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And the focus of it is a book that answers the questions that most people have about diversity and inclusion. Actually, each chapter is a question. And then, of course, I answer that question. So we really are focusing on helping people understand that diversity and inclusion is not some government regulation, but rather it's a way of doing business and a way of expanding your reach so that you are reaching more people in the emerging markets and also really using the best talent that you have on board within your own organization.
Now, you mentioned this was in its third printing. What are some examples of companies or times when this advantage has been put to use?
Yes. Well, one of the things about this book is it's such an easy read that when I work with my clients, they adopt many of the techniques and the tools that I have within the book. So, for instance, one of the things that happens in an organization, any type of community or workplace, is something will happen that I call a diversity collision. And it's accidental. But nobody says anything because they don't know the right thing to say. Right. And so I actually teach them a technique called the stop technique that helps them know how to give feedback and still be friends with the person afterwards, because they're kind of uncomfortable about this. So many of my clients have incorporated that technique. And the other is the techniques that help people feel more comfortable asking questions to get to know people different than them.
Now, if an event planner is considering you for an event, because that's who this interview is for event planners, what's the ideal audience, or what are some of the audiences that this speech is for?
Well, the message is universal, so it's for many types of people. But to give you an example of where it's really a sweet spot for this particular message is any leaders that really want to have a broader impact with the people they interact with, whether that's internal to the company or if they're salespeople or customer service people or healthcare providers, anybody that's interacting with lots of folks. Because what I talk about in this message is that each of us has the ability to connect with other individuals. Mm-hmm. So we're not just saying, okay, do this when you're with Latinos and do this when you're with African Americans, but rather, what do you do when you're face-to-face with people who may be different than you, which ends up being everybody, of course, because everyone's different than you. So companies will bring me in to help their people get more comfortable with people different than them. So again, it's all types of folks, but particularly works well for the individual contributor as well as the leaders or the managers of those individual contributors.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like, because sometimes you get this diversity message pigeonholed into something that you do at a lunch and learn, something, but it really is for everyone, especially for sales, I think, too. But you're talking about in the healthcare industry. I mean, I hadn't really thought of that, but in the healthcare industry, you're interacting, whether in your front line or anyone on that staff can be interacting with people that are different from them, and the companies that can do that better have this advantage.
Exactly. And what my clients are learning is that when their people incorporate the tips and the techniques that I share with them, they realize that it's not as scary as a lot of people think that it is, number one. And when they're in crisis, in particular, like healthcare or something like that, they're able to quickly read the people they're interacting with. So instead of relying on their stereotypes, I give them some techniques that they can read that individual, regardless of what package they come in, so they can at least start out on the right foot. Now, at the same time, the techniques work with people you already know, but maybe just haven't gotten to know better, so you could work with them more effectively, or maybe you didn't like them or you thought you didn't like them, and you use these same techniques to get to know them in a different way.
Now, you've already talked a lot about it here, but what are some of the specific tools that audiences are able to walk away with after hearing you speak?
You bet. Well, first and foremost, as people are trying to figure out what is diversity and inclusion and why should I care, I talk about what I call the four cornerstones of diversity and inclusion. And this is a foundation that helps people build their own knowledge base. So I talk about how they go about finding that information or that knowledge. And then the next step is understanding. And of course, I explain what that means. And then acceptance, and acceptance doesn't mean condoning. And then lastly, the actions. And so we list several things within those actions. So they have four things that they can walk away with and say, okay, if I want to know more about people different than me, people that I'm interacting with, here's my own homework. So that's one of the things they can do. The other takeaway is the one I mentioned a moment ago called the stop technique, which seems to get the biggest play because many times people just don't know what to say, and this is a really easy technique for them to understand. So that's another takeaway. And then the various suggestions that I give to them on how they can incorporate just in their daily lives. I mean, I know we're all very busy, but what are some of the easy things they can incorporate into their daily lives so that they're constantly understanding people different than them without having to try to memorize these 10 things about this group and those 15 things about another group.
One of the things we're really big at here at Premier, and I know you're big at this as well, but I'll bring it up anyway, it's we want to make sure the event planners look good, and we want to make sure we make their lives easier because they've got a million things going on at events before and after. What are some of the ways that you make an event planner's life easier?
Absolutely. Well, I really work hard to be a kind of a no-brainer operation for the meeting planner. That is, that I am so easy to work with that I'm the last thing they have to worry about. So several things that I do, one of which is I customize my presentation to their event. I am very comfortable with changing the title of it or whatever we need to do to make it really fit that event. And then I spend a good deal of time studying their organization so I can learn some of the lingo so that I really understand some of the challenges people are dealing with, not trying to act as though I know everything about them, but I want the audience members to really feel like I'm talking to them, not just any group. And then some of the short-term things to do once we're on site is, of course, I always come in a day ahead of time or evening ahead of time so we don't have to worry about planes. I text or call the meeting planners so they don't have to worry about whether or not I arrived. I try to arrive early and stay late so I'll have plenty of time to interact with the participants because I find that they may not ask questions when you're actually on the platform, and sometimes you don't have Q&A time, but afterwards is when they really want to talk. And I really want to hear them, and I want to hear their questions and be available to answer them. So there are times when I attend the whole convention if it will fit into my schedule.
Well, Lenora, thanks so much for taking the time to do this interview and share with me and with event planners about what you do.